Welcome to the future. Get ready to explore how spirituality and science will come together in the Age of Aquarius. Hosted by Jacy Nova. Today on the show, I'm joining psychic intuitive and podcast host of Electric Spirit, Lynn. She's the former psychic expert for National Enquirer and InStyle magazine. We have a wonderful conversation about discovering your life's purpose and how to take control of your destiny in the Age of Aquarius. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Age of Aquarius. This is Jacy. Thank you, Jamie, for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I want to dive right in. You started communicating with spirits when you were 5 years old. Can you describe your first encounter?
Yes, that's when I have my first memory. I mean, things could have happened before then, but my first memory comes at the age of 5. And things were different for me. I know as a kid, I just felt different from other children. And I was always very sensitive, especially to noises. I had really sensitive ears. So I don't know if that had something to do with my clairaudient ability. Then with my clairvoyance, which is seeing, one day I actually saw 2 spirits in my room at the age of 5. And I saw 2 young boys. And one was about 11 or 12 years old. And the other was around 5 or 6. And they were dressed like pioneers. And I was not afraid of them. And they seemed very friendly. I was talking to them, and it's interesting, my mom and my aunt came to my room, like standing in the doorway, and they saw me talking to things that weren't there, and they seemed shocked. So when I saw the young boys, they appeared solid like humans, but then they also disappeared into thin air without any explanation. So I know that was out of place, as a 5-year-old. And my mom also told me that I had an imaginary friend too, which is generally a sign of a psychic kid or an indigo child.
Were your parents supportive of your spiritual ability, or were they concerned?
They were actually supportive of it, because my mom's side is psychic and my dad has the more medium side.
So what was it like growing up in a home where your father is a psychic medium and your mom comes from a psychic background? Did you practice any studies growing up, like tarot or astrology?
You know what? Not with my parents. My dad, he's a Pisces on the cusp of Aquarius, actually. So he has that Pisces side, but he also has the Aquarian side where they're a little bit more, you know what I mean, intellectual and all that. So he didn't really act upon a lot of the psychic stuff. We'd do that maybe on our off time. We'd, talk about ghost stories or things like that. But my grandmother, my mother's mom, was the one that really got me into astrology and psychic things. So it was basically my parents. I don't know if they were just trying to protect me or what, but it was mostly my grandmother that got me into this.
And growing up with that intuitive ability, are there any premonitions or experiences that stand out to you besides the contact that you had from the 2 small children? Were there any other experiences you had, like as a teenager, that were interesting?
I did predict my cousin dying in a car crash, that kind of thing. So it's things, I stood next to him on Christmas Eve and he was talking about graduating from high school, and I'm thinking to myself, no, you're not going to. I didn't obviously tell him that, but, I kept all this to myself and kept having a feeling of impending doom that, he was going to pass away. But, when that happens, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Those kind of things. I did predict a few high school people passing away too.
When you get these premonitions, do you feel it in your body? Is it something physical? Is it something emotional? And is it just a feeling, or does someone come forward and give you the information?
I feel like usually it's an emotional impression, but I also feel like my guides or spirit is also giving me that information. And sometimes I'll see it come through like a movie. So I'll see pictures of it actually happening.
I'm just curious because you said you didn't feel like you could share that information with your cousin. Was it because of your age, or that you feel like this is his fate and so that you can't interrupt what is the inevitable?
I think I didn't want to scare him. I was hoping that this was wrong, actually. I feel like if I would have warned him, it would have happened anyways.
Right. As a paranormal investigator, where do you find most paranormal activity, and why is this? You read about, stories about homes being haunted. I'm just curious where you find in your experience where this paranormal activity happens and why is it?
I feel like it can happen anywhere, to be honest. When I first started noticing paranormal things, I was actually about 12 or 13. I was babysitting at my parents' friend's house, and they lived in a newly constructed home. But I remember years prior, there was a Native American Indian that came to our class, and he pointed to where their house was going to be built. And he said, "See that land down there? That's ancient Indian burial ground." So whoever built their house built over an Indian burial ground, apparently. I think anywhere can be haunted, whether it's new construction or old construction. I've noticed more it's the older constructed homes, but it can also happen in newly constructed homes.
I've had my own psychic experiences. I had a near-death experience when I was 4, which I think really opened me up to seeing things that other people couldn't see. My family, my mom, bought me several books when I was small to study astrology and tarot. And I'm just curious what you think about this. Like, I can meet someone and get a sense about them if there's, like, I remember this one particular incident. Friends of mine managed this apartment building, and there was this guy in his late 20s that lived beneath them. And my friend's wife was pregnant, and they had a small daughter at home. And I remember we met them, like, I think it was like a Christmas party or something. And as soon as I saw him, his eyes, I was just like, I said, "Corey, don't ever allow your wife to be alone with him." I said, there's something off about him. I just always had this like yucky feeling about him whenever I was around him. And I just said, "Don't let your daughters around him. Just stay away from him." And it wasn't something like 6 to 8 months later, he ended up getting arrested for trafficking women.
Oh my goodness.
And so I know that sometimes I kind of have this like immediate response towards somebody. But for me, I've always kind of tried to turn it off because it becomes like I'm picking up too much information about a person. And I'm just curious, like if you're out, say at the grocery store or you're in a social situation, do you get these experiences or do they come to you like at night when you're sleeping? I'm just curious when you get these impressions.
I get them all the time, actually. So it's hard for me to be in a crowd, like to go to Disneyland or I go to Disneyland. I'm not afraid to, but if I do go, I have a necklace that I wear that's really special, that is a protective necklace where I'll bring my crystals in my pocket or wear essential oils that help. But I do sense this all the time.
As far as like, how do you protect yourself? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that you might consider their sentience or just highly sensitive. You talk about wearing a necklace. How can people protect themselves? Because I've found for myself personally, like it can be overwhelming. So I just shut that part off. Like I don't want that information. But I feel like there's probably other people listening that have the same experiences.
You know what's interesting? After I graduated from Michigan State University with a bachelor's degree, I actually had a scholarship and I became a massage therapist and I went to a community college. And I loved being in that realm because I had a lot of new age teachers. And they told us just because we're around other people's energy that we should shield ourselves. And one of my instructors gave me a really great exercise to shield yourself from other people's energies. And that was just imagining the whole color of the rainbow is going around you in a circle to keep circling around you. All the colors, first it's red circling around you, then orange, and then yellow, and then green and blue and purple. I might be missing a color, sorry. But, and you just imagine that going around you, or imagine a white bubble around you. So you're protecting yourself from other people's energies before you go out.
Yeah, that's very good advice, because I think energy can be so powerful. I want to talk about how you've helped law enforcement in missing person cases. Do you think the use of psychic mediums are helpful in helping find missing persons, or actually putting the story together of what may have happened to that person?
Yes, I feel that psychics are a valuable part of a crime investigation and missing person cases. And with me, my old leader of my paranormal group in New England, and he was a former police officer. There was a college-age girl that went missing, and he was friends with her father. And she went missing a few days before he called me, and I didn't hear what had happened on the news. So he called and said, "Are you getting anything from this?" Because when I was in the paranormal group, I was the lead psychic of the group. And so what I told him, he was shocked because I hadn't heard anything about, where she was from, what sector of the United States. So he was kind of shocked at, the different landmarks I was seeing, or where I felt her body was. He asked me, he said, "Do you think she's alive?" And I point blank said no. And unfortunately, I was right. He did put me in touch with the FBI to give them information. So I definitely feel that psychics can assist and give law enforcement clues. And I saw images like a movie, and I saw certain landmarks and details. So I think that can help law enforcement.
Does the victim come forward to you to give you information, or are you seeing it through their eyes or through the person that actually took them? If in that case it is somebody possibly took them, because sometimes missing persons people were in an accident or something tragic happened.
Right. It's almost like I wasn't seeing it through anybody's eyes. I almost feel like I was a spirit watching over what happened. It's kind of interesting. In this case, she didn't come forward to me. And sometimes when people first pass away, it might take them a while to come to somebody, like a medium, because they're newly crossed over. So maybe that's why she didn't come to me. Some of them, I've done medium readings where they come right away, but generally it takes them a little while to get acclimated over there. In this specific incident, I was mostly getting the information from spirit, not her. The victim, yeah.
And why do you think that, from a spiritual perspective, when souls come into this lifetime and some of them leave this world in a tragic way, whether it's through an accident, they go missing, perhaps even more tragic, they're, say, murdered or something like that. Do you feel like there's some type of soul contract that they might have with their family, or they know coming into this lifetime, like, this is how it's going to end for you?
Yes, I believe we do have a soul contract. But I also believe we have free will.
So you can change your story.
Yes.
Or you can change your storyline.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. I actually have a friend, and her mother was friends with this lady that was actually taken by Ted Bundy, the serial killer, and she actually escaped. So, I think if you have free will, you can maybe get out of it, but maybe a lot of it's more like maybe 90% of it's, predestined, and then 10% could be free will.
That makes sense. When it comes to animals, obviously you're a dog mom, I'm a dog mom, and you work closely with animals. How does your healing differ than with that of humans? How do you work with animals, and how do you communicate with them?
Yeah, healing is different because the animal's energies, I feel, is more peaceful than humans. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I just feel like, animals are more innocent. They're not dealing with a lot of the things we're dealing with here in the 3D world. With humans, we have to deal with a lot of issues and problems. So I feel the animals tend to soak up the healing faster. And with some people, I find it's hard for them to relax too, because we're so connected to technology and animals aren't. So maybe that's why their energy feels more at ease.
I mean, all of us feels like such a close connection with our animal, you know, whether you have a dog or a cat or horse, whatever type of animal you might have. From an energy perspective, do you feel like animals can sense spirit or can sense, you know, say there's maybe a ghost? And do you feel like animals can sense like danger for you personally as their owner?
Yes, I do. I definitely feel the animals, I've seen it happen with a few of my pets, whether it be a cat I've had, you know, previously, or a dog, that they've seen things that aren't there. And I do feel like they're, you know, perceptive to the spirit world. They can definitely see things that we can't. And also, we had an earthquake here in California yesterday. I think it was 4.3 or 4.6. But I know my dogs were around me and they ran before the earthquake happened. So they can even feel danger before it occurs, which is really kind of remarkable.
Yeah, that's fascinating. From your years of experience of being a psychic medium, did you have any sense of like when the pandemic was about to happen, did you feel energies shifting that the whole kind of, I feel like the whole world, you know, our consciousness level, all of us have gone through this together. So I'm just curious what you might have sensed or felt when it first started.
When it first started, it felt like a bunch of chaos, to be honest. And actually, we were in Mercury retrograde during that time when the pandemic started and when things started shutting down in March. And Spirit actually told me the fall of 2019 that there would be a pandemic, like in the movie Contagion with Gwyneth Paltrow. I actually blew it off because I thought, yeah, right, we have modern medicine, but I guess viruses are different. And I didn't realize that viruses don't respond to antibiotics like bacterial infections do. And I also really didn't want to think about it, to be honest. And it's like that movie, you know, on Netflix called Don't Look Up. I didn't want to believe in it, to be honest. I was a little bit afraid of it, to be truthful. I mean, I was like, wow, how are we going to handle this? So I knew the whole world was going to change.
I love astrology and I do readings for friends and stuff. And I kept talking with people and I kept seeing them moving, like multiple people. I'm like, gosh, you're moving. And I was like, why is everybody moving? And then like within 6 months, the pandemic happened and all these people that I had spoken to, friends, they were like, you're right, we're moving. But it was because of the pandemic and people moving to a new location that fits their energy better, or at least they're open to, you know, the experience. And I think even having a conversation with me from an astrology perspective of like, hey, be open to that experience, that if you need to leave, go ahead and go to this new place that you're thinking about. And I feel like the energy has shifted so much because I live in California as well, and in Los Angeles. And, you know, I've had friends move to Portugal, to Texas, to Miami, to New York, back to Australia. I thought that's so interesting. Like, okay, there's all of us that stayed in California. And I'm like, I wonder what that means. we haven't left and everybody else has. Like,
exactly.
Die hard.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, maybe. Let's hope so. You've investigated some of the most haunted places in the U.S. Is there like a particular experience that stands out to you?
You know, my experience as working in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania in the United States was amazing. And there's so much activity there. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. I've caught a lot of images on camera, such as orbs and clouds of smoke or mists that appear out of nowhere. And in New England, and the Grafton Inn really stands out. There's an inn called the Grafton Inn in Grafton, Massachusetts. And the owners had our paranormal group come in one night, and there's a little girl ghost named Martha that haunts the inn. And we investigated a specific room that Martha hangs out in. And we put a Maglite flashlight on the dresser, and about 10 of us were kind of in the room, and Martha, the ghost, turned the flashlight on and off on command. I mean, she wasn't literally pushing the button, but they've shown this on Ghost Hunters where I think they do something with the top of the flashlight, and it kind of comes on real slow and then it turns off real slow. And it went on for about 20 minutes, and I honestly couldn't believe my eyes. I felt like I was in a movie, and it was unbelievable. I do have it on video, and even a lot of private residents in New England were very active. One time, my paranormal colleague and I were investigating a private residence, and we each had our digital recorders on, and I coughed, and I said, "Excuse me." And after our investigation, my colleague called me and he said, "You need to listen to such and such time on the recording." After I coughed, this ghostly male voice said, "Bless you for saying that." I coughed and said, "Excuse me." And he said, "Bless you for saying that." So it's just amazing, some of the things we've gotten on tape and the things that have occurred. And so I feel like Gettysburg and New England are very active areas, and I really enjoyed investigating those areas.
That's fascinating. I'm curious for energy that's left. Say, a lot of us, live in apartments or homes that we rent from another person. Can you maybe explain how energy might stay or be left behind with the previous tenant, or how maybe furniture or homes have the energy, and maybe how important it is to kind of clear out the old energy, so when you move into a new place, that it's your energy and you're not being affected by other people's?
Exactly. I really feel like it's important to have the house blessed in some way, whether it be by a clergy person or depending on what happened there, or because my brother actually, his ex-girlfriend lived in a house where somebody had committed suicide, and they actually experienced some really outlandish things being in there. It was really almost violent. So in those circumstances, I would have a clergy person come and bless the place. Generally, all you really need to do is sage the place, maybe to pray to Archangel Michael out loud, that kind of thing. And maybe have your crystals around the place before you move in, if you can. And even a salt is good around the windows to protect negativity. So just make sure you use those tools.
That's great. Great advice. Yeah. I like to put crystal in the window seal. I've done that before.
I think it's selenite, right, is really good too. And frankincense oil. So I do recommend it. Mm-hmm.
I think too that I've felt in certain rooms, hold energy, especially say the bedroom, or say a couple lived there before. It's interesting. I lived in this old Art Deco apartment building. There's just 8 apartments in Long Beach. I don't live there anymore. But when I moved there, it just kind of, it's like a historical building. And when I moved out after 6 months because it had such a weird energy, and people would come in the building and then they would leave after a certain period of time. And there was one particular apartment next door to us that whatever person moved in that building, it was always a couple. They would always fight, and police would come, and then they would end up moving out. It was funny. One of the neighbors had shared with me after I had left that a person had come to buy the apartment because we were right next to the ocean, to kind of sit in the park and be by the building. And he started chatting with them. And she said, "Oh, this apartment building's really famous because people come here that a lot of people had died in the building. They had cancer or something like that." And so she had stopped by the building because she was sick and wanted to try to move back in the building before she passed. It was such a weird, strange story. And my friend Pat had told me, he goes, "You were right. You felt this weird energy." And I'm like, "Well, it's not my time to go yet. I got to get out of here." I was I just had such weird energy. And the woman above me to the corner, her name was Darcy. She had been sick. And I said, "I don't think she's going to live much longer." And she passed 4 months after I moved out. And I thought, this building needs a good cleansing, energy cleansing, because it has so many spirits, haunted spirits, it felt like, that were, getting ready to cross over. So I don't know. That was just such a weird, made me think of it when you talked about haunted houses.
Right. But in that circumstances, when there's several, units, sometimes the spirit can go into another unit. And so you have to make sure that everybody's a united front. And sages or cleanses together. But unfortunately, some people aren't open to this. So maybe that's why it just keeps staying there. It's like on a loop, it just doesn't go away. So
yeah, or maybe it serves a purpose, I guess, for people that are getting ready to cross over. I mean, it is a beautiful area. It's very, very weird energy. The building's called the Swan, and it has this black swan on top of it. And it's very, like, it could be in a haunted movie. It's very, very strange building. Beautiful, but yeah, it was very strange.
Live there.
Yeah. So I don't know if you follow astrology, but we talk about what does the Age of Aquarius mean to you, to me. And I'm just curious, like, do you feel like we're in the Age of Aquarius now? And what's your impression, what we can expect?
I do follow astrology, and I really like astrology. I actually started doing astrology maybe when I was 14 or 15. My grandmother got me into that. The Age of Aquarius means maybe more harmony, more open-mindedness, more people being connected to spirit. And I feel like the Age of Aquarius is strongly linked to technology. So new things will be invented, and it's time for people to be visionaries. I feel like there'll be more visionaries coming in, and then more creativity comes. And I also feel like there'll be changes in thinking and like lifestyle changes, education and work. And I feel like people will start to think outside the box.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm very hopeful for the Age of Aquarius. And I think from a global consciousness level, that I think that if we shift our thought process, be kinder to others, take a little bit more time in thinking about our actions and how that impacts us on a daily basis, I'm hoping that there's going to be more of a positive outcome. I know for the pandemic, it's made all of us kind of stop and think and reevaluate what's important to us. You continuously receive validations on your predictions. You predicted several major life events in history, like Hurricane Katrina and the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. Is there anything that you're sensing or feeling over the next few years?
Well, I also predicted Joe Biden would win. I didn't put that on my website yet. I think I can put it on there now because there was a lot of hype around it. I think there was a lot of strong emotions around that election. So I kind of didn't really want to say a whole lot, but it's just a prediction. So it's not my opinion on it. It comes from spirit. I did predict him winning. I feel like as far as other predictions, I feel like, the technology will bring new things coming in. I feel like there'll be some unusual weather conditions. And like I said, a huge uptick in technology. Spirit does show me there will be big changes with housing, like I said. And they're showing me pods. So I feel like we're not going to be living in these tract homes because I feel like the old way isn't working anymore. That does come in. I do see some other things coming, but I'll be honest, I don't think I should talk about it because it might scare people.
Maybe you can answer this one. Do you think that Biden will complete his presidential term?
Yes, I do feel like he will complete his term, and I feel like he might even possibly get a second term.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he would run again with Kamala?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
And I just want to go back to the pods part, which I think is really fascinating because I kind of agree with you on that. Like in Tokyo, Japan, people live they have like hotel pods and things like that. You think of tiny homes, like a lot of places people are kind of scaling down, and instead of having a big, massive home, they're, living in 300 to 500 square feet. Do you feel like that will be an option to help solve the housing crisis as we move forward?
Yes, I do feel that will help the housing crisis.
Do you feel like the mood is going to shift in coming years? Do you feel like people are going to be more optimistic, more fearful, or just more, I don't know, maybe cautious?
I feel like right now it's kind of in between. I think people are trying to be optimistic, but sometimes it's hard. But I feel going forward that people are going to be, more optimistic with things, and I see people coming together and trying to help each other. I do see that.
And long term, do you feel like COVID is eventually going to weaken, or will we never really go back to normal? It's kind of like something we just have to live with, like the flu. Like it, as they say, I guess you might hear on the news, they call it an endemic.
Yeah, I feel the fear of COVID, I feel will weaken, but I feel like COVID's here to stay for at least a while. It's interesting. They did tell me before the podcast, Spirit did, that 2025 will be better. And we might have to just sort of deal with things for the next year or two. I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of really great things coming in 2025.
Well, at least that's something to look forward to. something to work towards. I kind of feel like I try to take it day by day.
Exactly. And it's interesting. I think 2025, that would be a 9-year, and 9 is a year of completion. So that sort of does make sense from a numerology standpoint.
I guess at the end of the day, we have to be realistic. I think it's important, to make sure that your life is meaningful and whatever is important to you.
Of course.
And the people that you love and care about. And I always try to encourage people, we never really know what's going on in someone's life. Saying hello or asking someone how they're doing can sometimes just make a big difference. Check in on people, make sure they're okay. I've found that younger people, kids in high school, college students, seem to be emotionally impacted, but maybe they don't necessarily feel comfortable to talk about it. I'm excited to learn more about your podcast. You were sharing with me that you've started a podcast called Electric Spirit just a few months ago. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how often, what day it airs, and what people can expect?
Well, right now it's kind of airing. It doesn't have a specific day just because everything's been a little haywire in my life. My dog was having seizures, and it's everything's so unpredictable right now. You know what I mean? So generally it airs every week, and it's a metaphysical podcast, and I talk about all different things. It's not just limited to one thing. It's really about a lot of new age things such as paranormal, astrology, signs of loved ones who have passed, essential oils, so that kind of thing. Just, I want to give people something to look forward to, because I know that the last few years have been difficult for us. So I try to keep it, neutral, and I don't like to get into real heavy topics, but, learning more about new age things and how, different things can help us in the world, and to make it a better place, and to make the listeners feel better.
Yeah, I think that's important. We all need tools to live a better, happier life. I'm sure that Electric Spirit is very helpful. What's the website URL for Electric Spirit?
It's just electricspiritpodcast.com. Oh, also, I just wanted to say I'll give updates too. We're in a Mercury retrograde right now until February 3rd of 2022. And so I'll give updates on that, or stuff about the full moon. So sometimes we have some current things coming up that we'll have episodes on. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's very helpful. How can listeners contact you for a reading or learn more about you from your personal website?
Yeah, they could go to my website at psychicjamie.com, and Jamie spelled Jamie. My Instagram is at SoCal Healer. I'm at the Electric Spirit Podcast. Is at Electric Spirit Podcast on IG. I'm also listed on Bob Olson's Best Psychic Directory. But the best way to find me is through my website, psychicjamie.com, and they could just go to the book tab and request an appointment. I'm generally on instant readings, which is this little button that you click on my website. It'll say call now. So that's usually the best way to get a hold of me, to be honest. If they want a private reading, they just fill out the form, and then my assistant, Kim, will get back to them.
That's great. It's been so nice chatting with you. Thank you so much for sharing more information about the work that you do, and I wish you well.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Jamie.
You just heard the Age of Aquarius podcast with your host, Jacy Nova. Remember to subscribe to the show on your favorite streaming platform. Thanks for tuning in.
Age of Aquarius is a cosmic media production and recorded in Los Angeles, California. A special thanks to our producers, Georgie Rutherford and Christopher Lang. To learn more about Age of Aquarius, please visit our website at ageofaquarius.fm. Thanks for listening.